Good evening, councillors, members of the community and members of the press. Welcome to our July council meeting. I'm Loranne Young, I'm the Mayor and the presiding member for this evening's meeting. I direct members of the public to the disclaimer on the inside cover of the agenda pack and draw your attention to the fact that this evening's meeting will be recorded. Is it being live? It is being live streamed, and so anyone speaking at the meeting, anyone present at the meeting and speaking will be captured on that, and that will be available to the public on the town's website. I have no announcements without discussion, so I'm going to move to public question time. I will start off though by acknowledging the Whadjuk Noongar people as the traditional custodians of the land where we're meeting this evening, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. At the moment I just have there are no public questions. Did any members of the community want to raise questions during this period? No. So I'll move to public statement time. I have a submission from David Rogers. Mr. Rogers, can I remind you of the rules of procedure that govern the meeting that allow you 3 minutes to speak? And if you could just come to the lectern and give your name and address and the item on which you wish to speak. And then there's a board here. I think you know the process. The board will indicate how you're tracking for time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mayor, elected members, CEO and members of the administration. I'd like to address 1017, the issue about CV Golf Club and the second and third holes. So I want to acknowledge that the second hole will stay as a par 4, and that is appreciated. So knowing that I've got a shortened period of time, I think I'll go straight to safety. So what the club has raised and what we think has been misunderstood is that when renewing the site around the Anderson Pavilion, a no parking sign was moved approximately 10 metres west and has cars parking within the boundaries of the third 12th hole. What the club proposes, the parking sign is moved back to where it was originally, so there is no parking in the field of play, and we sent a photo to the council in relation to where that sign originally was. We believe that passing cars are not the issue. It is that a no parking sign needs to be replaced in its original position to avoid stationary cars being parked in the field of play. We also think that parking is a much bigger issue here, and that the 2 car parks in question don't appear on any of the town's drawings as car parks. For the record, the club has a long history of taking safety measures in hand, and was instrumental in actually having the Jared Street closed, which used to run across the golf club. We've also made improvements to the 8th and 17th greens. We've moved them away from Pearce Street and plan to do the same with the 3rd, 12th green. And we've had advice from our 3 insurers that the club is doing everything appropriate to ensure safety and the reduction of possible liability. So the recommendation before you today suggests the town not pay for anything. So if the town expects the club to pay close to $200,000 for the entire works, then we need to have a much deeper conversation about that. And I refer to genuine consultation. In my work as a conciliator at the Fair Work Commission, genuine consultation must be genuine and not perfunctory. The club was given 1 day's notice of the recommendation prior to the pre-council meeting, which is not, well, we would argue, is not genuine consultation. We need to be genuinely consulted with about this matter. And in particular, a business decision and a wholesale change the nature of the course. So what the club is recommending is that, firstly, the town agreed to pay for protective fencing to protect the newly built Anderson Pavilion, and secondly, the tee box number 211. That Jeff Lane's par 4 design is the preferred option, as the club is paying for renovations, and we, as part of that, will plant low-lying bush along Harvey Field. That the 3rd 12th tee box remains where it is, but is shifted slightly west under revised design, and that the no parking sign, most importantly on Jared Street, is returned to its original place to take stationary vehicles and people out of the field of play. Until these common sense measures are discussed and potentially agreed between the parties, and I think that potential has a great amount of potential, we request that the officer recommendation is set aside until genuine consultation has occurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. There were no other public statements. Thank you. I will move on to attendance. We have Councillor Irvine and Councillor Heath joining us remotely. They're up on the screen there. Can I ask Councillor Heath and then Councillor Irvine to make the appropriate declaration, please?
Thanks, Mayor. Yes, I declare that I can preserve confidentiality. I'm alone in a hotel room with a do not disturb on the door, and I don't expect that anyone else will be in the room for the entire meeting. Also, I can preserve communication with the meeting. I'm on hotel Wi-Fi with a backup of a hotspot from my phone on a network if necessary, if something happens with the hotel Wi-Fi.
Thank you, Councillor Heath. Councillor Irvine?
Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I confirm that I am able to fully and effectively participate. I can assure confidentiality for any items that are discussed behind closed door, and as with Councillor Heath, I have a backup hotspot modem available if the hotel Wi-Fi is not working to plan.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. So we have a leave of absence, which is Councillor Katie Mason is on approved leave of absence. Are there any from the administration? So apart from Councillor Mason, we have a full house of elected members and administrative staff. Do we have any applications for leaves of absence? I believe that we do. So it is actually mine, that's why I thought we did. I would like to request leave of absence from the 30th of August to the 26th of September inclusive, as I will be travelling overseas. I'll move that I be given that leave. Councillor Harkin, second. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Phew. Are there any other applications for leaves of absence? No. Declarations of interest. I'll start off with mine. I have an impartiality interest in respect of item 10.1.6 Healthy Streets project on the basis that residents of both streets involved are known to me, but I can make a decision on the matter based on its merits. Does anyone else have a conflict of interest? Councillor Harkins?
Yes, also 10.1.6, impartiality interest in that I live on the corner of John and Marmion, but I am able to make decision on the matter based on its merits. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Through the
Yes,
chair.
Mayor, I have impartiality, 10.1.6. I can make a decision on the merits of the item. Some residents are known to me on those streets.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I'd like to declare a financial interest in item 13.1.1 as it is a requirement of my contract of employment.
Thank you. Councillor Sa-
Thank you. Yes, an impartiality interest in item 10.1.6. It's drawn to my attention that there are some residents on the affected streets which are known to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, Councillor Heath? Councillor Heath?
Similarly, I have an impartiality interest declaring 10.1.6 for the same reason that residents on both streets are known to me, but I can make my decision on the merits. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I will move on to confirmation of minutes. We have Two sets of minutes to confirm. We'll do them one at a time. Firstly, do I have a mover that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday 25th June 24 are confirmed as a true and accurate record? Do I have a mover? Councillor Bullbeck. A seconder? Councillor Sadler. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Do I have a mover that the minutes of the special council meeting held on Wednesday the 10th of July 24 be confirmed as a true and accurate record? Do I have a mover? Councillor Thomas, and a seconder, Councillor Wilinko. All in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Moving on to, we have no petitions to consider this evening or presentations. We do have a deputation from Mr. Mike Hume. Mr. Hume, would you like to come up there? With the deputation, you have 10 minutes to speak, and I'll just ask you to try to keep to that timing, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you could just state your name, address and the item that you're speaking on at the start.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, CEO and administration. The deputation I'm talking to is agenda item 10.1.6. My name's Mike Hume, and we live on the corner of John and Broome Street at 40 John Street. The reason I've requested this deputation is to outline a range of things in your officer's report that are either incorrect or inconsistent with the survey, workshop, Healthy Streets report and traffic engineering. I confirm that I am both a resident and owner of a home that is directly impacted by the current traffic situation, which is having a detrimental impact on our health and, importantly, the health of our neighbourhood. I also confirm that I have considerable experience with over 30 years in town planning as both a consultant and residential property development, with several state and national awards recognising our leadership in master planning sustainable residential communities. This includes involvement and participation in countless inquiry by design workshops, charrettes, community consultation processes, and importantly, I've also been recognised for leadership in urban stormwater management planning, with one of our developments becoming the new standard at Department of Planning, Land and Heritage for stormwater management in the Northwest. I say this so that you understand my background and ability to assess road design, calming and stormwater drainage. I was absolutely thrilled when I heard that Main Roads WA had initiated a Healthy Streets assessment of Broome and Marmion Streets, as the Healthy Streets doctrine is a world-leading assessment and design review process to create healthy streets in new suburbs and to retrofit unhealthy streets in existing suburbs. I, however, was completely perplexed at the consultation process, which included the survey and workshop. Unfortunately, the Healthy Streets report wasn't highlighted on your website and in the Community Engagement Hub, so it was effectively hidden, not intentionally, I'm sure, just a mistake. So your community didn't have access to the report before or during the survey or workshop. It's an excellent report which would have well informed our community about the issues and opportunities to improve the streets, and allayed concerns that it was actually a quasi sort of justification for future development, which a lot of members of our community thought. Ideally, a summary of the report should have been included as well as the full report to properly inform your community before the survey and workshop. Only a few images of the report were shown at the workshop. These images didn't include the poor score the streets achieved or the recommended solutions to the problems. However, upon finding the report by chance and reading it after the workshop, I basically was really sort of couldn't work out why there was only 6 simple road treatment sort of calming solutions that were offered, as the report went so much deeper than this. I was informed by your officers that the only things that they were the only things that Main Road will consider, which I couldn't understand. Why would Main Road spend the sort of money involved in a detailed report like this and then only offer some simple traffic calming solutions? Believe it or not, It was only today in discussion with one of your councillors who articulated that the manner that really articulated in a way that it sort of started to make sense. Apparently, Main Roads told council that they want to use the Healthy Streets assessment tool to determine the overall safety and impact these streets are having on the community, but also confirmed that the only things that they will contribute funds to are some on-street calming options that they would provide. I think it would have been a lot better to have articulated this at the outset, as it makes a lot more sense. I still am a little bit perplexed why they would sort of fund it. That's an expensive report, and why they would fund such a report and then only offer these simple solutions. Whilst I think it's imperative that we use this opportunity to get funding from Main Roads to calm Broome and Marmion streets, I would like to think that the town of Cottesloe can use the overall Healthy Streets report recommendations that go considerably deeper than these simple traffic calming measures to improve the overall health of the streets for the whole community in the future, once the traffic calming has been installed, as we don't want to miss the opportunity to get some state funding right now to deal with the calming of traffic. Giving it more thought, I think the biggest issue with the process to date has been created by your consultant, not your staff, as the survey was poorly worded and the results are misleading. Many people in our neighbourhood were concerned that it was leading to further development of the area due to the questions around activation of the streets, which made people react by saying, please don't do anything. It's perfect as it is. They were all worried it was leading to increased densities with commercial development. The consultant, Space Station, run by a really nice guy, are marketing consultants with no idea about healthy streets, which is a real pity, as there are over 40 planning and engineering professionals in Perth with Healthy Streets accreditation who would have provided a great survey and workshop. When you drill into the results, they actually paint a much clearer picture of how unhealthy the streets are, as the expert Healthy Streets consultants outlined in the report they prepared for Main Roads, with scores of 30 out of 100 for both streets. It's a pretty poor outcome. The community that I live in, between Forest and Napier Streets, weren't surprised with this, as the road has become so stressful for us that we're at our wits' end with it. The consultant included moderate responses in the positive outcomes, not negative. It is, of course, in the middle, but when it comes to health and safety, moderate isn't acceptable, it's negative. So keeping in mind that people were concerned that this was leading to further development, as opposed to making our local environment safer and healthier, therefore trying to put a positive spin on things, the following are the actual survey results. Everyone feels welcome. In the not welcome to slightly and moderate, 56%. Easy to cross, very difficult to moderate, 55%. Shade and shelter, no shade to moderate, 58%. Places to stop and rest, no places to stop, to moderate, 74%. People choose to walk and cycle, very unattractive to moderate, over 50%. Not too noisy, very quiet to somewhat quiet, 56%. They obviously don't live on Broome Street. People feel safe, moderate to very unsafe, 48%. We can't look at that as positive. You also need to understand that only 26% of the respondents actually live on Broome Street, which correlates to the portion that were more on the very negative side. Too noisy, unsafe, difficult to cross, which is why the Healthy Streets consultants recommended consulting with people that live on these streets and forming groups of people on the streets, between streets, in neighbourhood groups, to do a more detailed consultation process. The section of Broome Street between Forest and Loma became incredibly unhealthy due to speeding cars and the associated noise. It's become incredibly dangerous for our elderly. Some elderly members of our community won't cross Broome Street at John Street intersection now because of how fast the cars fly through this section of road. It's also very dangerous. It's also very dangerous road for cyclists and kids on skateboards, which we're seeing more of now due to the opening of the skate park on Napier Street, which I have to say we love. But we saw a few kids very nearly get hit by a speeding Toyota Hilux directly in front of our home on Broome Street just a few weeks ago. It's only a matter of time before an accident does happen here. Your Director of Engineering has stated that for calming measures to be successful, they need to be within 80 to 100 metres of each other. Yet he's also said that the calming proposed at Forest and Loma Streets, which are 200 metres apart, I think 215, will provide the calming we need around the John Street intersection. This doesn't add up. A raised platform at the intersection of John Street will provide the perfect distance of 100 metres to Forest Street and 100 metres to Loma Street, so all three calming devices are effective. Sean is a really nice guy, and I totally understand that he has been concerned about potential additional costs associated with the raised platform in the John Street location due to stormwater drainage. However, I've assessed the drainage situation in detail and confirmed that it's not an issue at all. On the plan that I have printed out here, I have provided several copies of. You can see the existing stormwater drain locations, and they are in the perfect locations, except two, which are just a little bit up Broome Street, which can be dealt with very easily through a small section basically a small section of pipe through the raised platform, which is fairly common in a raised platform treatment. John Street and Forest Street, and John Street, there's also a lot of pedestrian traffic that comes from the railway and from Marmion Street and from all along the coast. As such, it is a really important intersection with John Street Cafe and so forth. It's heavily used. I'd like to, I'm hoping with this information that Council can seriously consider adding another point to your office's recommendation, number 2. The current recommendation says, notes the preferred concept within attachment E. I'd like to see added to that, and to add a raised platform to the intersection of John and Broome Streets so as to provide an opportunity for further assessment by our engineers and community during the second round of public consultation. This will provide an opportunity to be further assessed. The Healthy Streets report outlines that a range of other items should be considered to improve the health of the streets. I would love to work with community and council in the future once the road calming is resolved, and hopefully significantly reducing road speed and traffic on our streets and making them safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hume.
Do you want me to can I leave that maybe so it can get passed around? I'd say,
You're very welcome to.
Yep.
Perhaps you could leave it with, yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to move on to en bloc resolutions. Thank you. CEO, could I ask you to indicate which items have been called up this evening?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the items that have been called up, the ones that have been called up start at 10.1.3, Delegations Register Update, 10.1.4, Reconsideration, Change of John Black Dream Park Reserve from Dog Exercise Area to Dog on Leash Area. Item 10.1.5, Seaview Golf Course Tee Box Relocation and Fairway Realignment. 10.1.6, Healthy Streets Project Concept. 10.1.8, Seaview Golf Club Redevelopment Advisory Committee, Committee Terms of Reference. And items 13.1, Consultant Selection CEO Performance Review, and 13.1.2, Audit Committee Risk Register Review. So the items that haven't been called up, just to confirm, are 10.1.1, Monthly Financial Statements, 10.1.2, Review of Terms of Reference of the Universal Access and Inclusion Reference Group and the Reconciliation Action Working Group, 10.1.7, CEO Quarterly Information Bulletin, and 10.2.1, Receipt of the Audit Committee Minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Scott. Can I please have a mover of that items 10.1.1, monthly financial statements, 10.1.2, review of the terms of reference for the Universal Access and Inclusion Reference Group, and the Reconciliation Action Working Group. And 10.2.1, receipt of the Audit Committee Audit Committee minutes. And sorry, I've missed one, 10.1.7, the CEO Quarterly Information Bulletin, that those 4 items be dealt with en bloc. Do I have a mover? Councillor Harkins, and a seconder, Councillor Sadler. All in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Now, I am going to move that we deal with the Healthy Streets project concept, item 10.1.6, as the first item on the agenda, and then follow through the agenda in the order that it appears in the printed document. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thomas, all in favour of moving the order of business? That's unanimous, thank you. That's just to for the benefit of our member of the public who is here. Where are we? So item 10.1.6, Healthy Street Project Concept on page 29, with the officer's recommendation on page 40. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? No, you can't move it. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? If somebody can move it to get the ball rolling, as long as you're not planning on moving an amendment. And yeah, okay, so the officer's recommendation is moved by Councillor Wilinko. Do I have a seconder for the Councillor Harkins? Councillor Sadler. Councillor Wilinko, do you want to speak to it?
No, it's self-explanatory.
Thank you. Councillor Sadler?
Look, thank you very much. I would like to speak in favour of it. I think this is a real opportunity for us to improve safety and improve the sense of community health in the community, as Mr Hume has alluded to. And I think it's been a thorough process, albeit not without its hiccups, to actually consult with the community, and I think the majority of people are wanting there to be some changes, and I think that while acknowledging that this is only going to be on-road infrastructure, that this is a real opportunity to improve that aspect of things and to start shifting the dial on healthy community infrastructure in our society. So I'm very keen to advocate for it in that regard. I do want to move an amendment, a minor amendment, but I do speak in favour. May I, as a seconder, I can move an amendment as well? Mm-hmm. Would you like me to progress that? So you've got that in front of you. I wanted to move a minor amendment, so after point 3B, which refers to the Healthy Streets Assessment, I wanted to add a point C, which is to request that the Healthy Streets Assessment assess whether the preferred option within attachment E will lower speeds consistently along Broome and Marmion streets to improve amenity, and make recommendations for additional treatments if required to achieve this. So if I had a seconder, I would speak to that.
Is there a seconder?
Can I just ask a question about it?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah, yes. Sorry, I might just, I've got Councillor Thomas as the seconder, but yeah, you please.
Can I just ask Councillor Sadler, by request at the Healthy Streets Assessment, do you mean the people that, or within the town, or are you talking about the main roads healthy street people?
In point B, it's said that there's going to be a $5,000 allocation to carry out the Healthy Streets Assessment. So I'm saying that we are asking that process, that'll be a person who is qualified to do that, will actually then look at this issue. I apologise if it should be directed to the administration. Did ask me the question, but that was my interpretation of following on from B, therefore C.
And do you mind if I just confirm that with the administration? Yeah. Is it an external person that $5,000 is for?
through the chair, I can confirm it's an external consultant that'll be doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Can I please ask a question, Mr. Khan? Is that Healthy Streets assessment done after these steps are implemented, or is it a preliminary before they're implemented?
Through the chair, the healthy street assessments will be done based on the concepts shown in attachment E.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Sadler, do you want to speak to the amendment? Oh,
Yes.
no, Councillor Thomas has seconded.
Just briefly to say that while I think that this is likely to be part of the Healthy Streets assessment, that they will actually look and check that this is going to achieve the desired outcomes, I really wanted to make that very explicit because I wanted to make sure that it was somewhat more overt than this is not going to cause any problems. Actually, I wanted to make sure this is going to create the solutions which have been to the problems which have been identified from the community. So it's really just strengthening the officer's recommendation rather than steering the ship in a different direction. But I wanted to make that sort of clear both to the Healthy Streets assessor and also to the community that we're really wanting to make sure that we do achieve lowered speeds so that we can have safer crossings for our residents across these busy streets. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas, do you want to speak to that?
No, nothing to add.
You can reserve your right to speak later as the seconder if you want to. Sure. But you have to ask to just say, reserve my right.
Okay,
to
I'll
speak.
reserve my right.
Yeah, it's always a good idea. Does anyone want to speak against the amendment?
Sorry, I wanted to ask a question too, which might not be possible because it's not as to the point as Councillor Harkins, but is this amendment likely to bring back any information about the proposed raised platform between John and Broome or not? Or is that a separate
I don't
issue?
think you can put that question to
Okay.
Councillor Sadler because that's not really, that's
Not-
sort of
not enough.
speculative. I would like to speak against the amendment and propose an alternative to, or foreshadow an alternative amendment that I'll move if this one is not successful, which is that the addition of an alternative paragraph C, that we request the administration to include traffic calming, e.g. raised platform at the John Street intersection with Broome Street in the preferred option, to ensure that it is considered in the second round of public consultation and in the Healthy Streets assessment. I am speaking against the amendment, although I will probably vote for it, but just on the basis that I feel that I will still move my own, but I feel that there is a strong case for a raised platform at the John Street intersection. Information in the officer's report does suggest a minimum or a maximum distance between traffic calming of 100 metres in order for them to be effective. And the distance between Forest Street and Loma Street is over 200 metres. So I think there is a strong argument that the current situation in the preferred option won't be sufficient, and it might not come out if it's not specifically put in there. The other point that I would make is that that particular intersection is at the centre of a really important part of our streetscape. It is close to the John Street Cafe, and I believe that it is an area that is used by local people in the neighbourhood, but also a lot of residents and also visitors to Cottesloe coming by train often travel down Broome at that point and cross to continue down to the beachfront. So I think it is a really obvious candidate for traffic calming. So I would want to ensure that it was specifically considered when we go out for public consultation and do that Healthy Streets assessment. So on that basis, I would much prefer to have something more specific. I will nonetheless support Councillor Sadler's amendment in addition as a sort of a belts and braces, but subject to the inclusion of the motion that I'm proposing to move as an amendment.
May I ask a question? Are you proposing to move this as an additional amendment?
Yeah.
So, okay, so it's, could be and, not or? Yeah.
Did anyone else want to speak to the amendment?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the amendment because I believe Councillor Thomas is putting up an amendment anyway, which I think will deal with what you have just discussed. So I would like to speak in favour of Councillor Sadler's amendment because we can have both.
Yeah.
So even if I suspect what Councillor Thomas is going to put up deals with what you've just discussed, we can still have Healthy Streets assessment look if it is going to slow down traffic on Broome and Marmion. So I think it's an and,
Yep.
not an or. So I feel comfortable with that we have this amendment and then deal with what's coming next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did anyone else want to speak to the amendment?
I just want to echo Councillor Harkin's position that I
Yeah.
would like to support both of these proposals that have
thank
been verbally and written articulated, yes.
Councillor Heath and Councillor Irvine, I'm going to put the amendment to the vote. All in favour? That is unanimous, thank you. Now, I've foreshadowed an amendment as well. I haven't seen a copy of any amendment that Councillor Thomas has put up.
No, I haven't had a chance to write it, but to send it, but I've written it down here.
Well, I've foreshadowed mine.
I'm happy if you.
But
yeah.
perhaps...
I think the only difference was to, with the addition of, review the option, and if it's less than $20,000, then include it. But that was, that was the only difference.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I am going to move my motion, which is in the following terms, that a new paragraph D, and actually, I think it would be new paragraph C with current paragraph C renumbered as paragraph D, logically, requests the administration, requests the Chief Executive Officer to, that's in the prelude. So the new paragraph C would read, include traffic calming, e.g. raised platform at the John Street intersection with Broome Street in the preferred option, comma, to ensure it is considered in the second round of public consultation and in the Healthy Streets assessment. If I have a seconder for that motion, then I can speak to it. Councillor Bulbeck, thank you. As I said in my speaking to Councillor Sadler's motion, and I spoke to that just to flag my intention in relation to this, the officer's report suggests that traffic calming measures are required to be no more than 100 metres apart if they're to achieve their objective. The distance between Forest and Loma Street is quite significantly more than that. It is over 200. And based on the information in the officer's report, this is too great a distance for the current preferred option to achieve its objectives of calming traffic around the John Street intersection. The parts of Broome Street between Forest and Loma, that part of Broome Street is one of the most central parts of the residential beachside precinct. And as I've said earlier, apart from the people who live in the neighbourhood, the street is visited by many residents from throughout Cottesloe. It is a main connection to the much-loved John Street Cafe, and it is used by visitors coming to Cottesloe by train as an alternative to the Forest Street route. Traffic speed in that section is a significant problem, and that has been identified. I mean, we know that in any event, but that's been identified by public consultation. The preferred option does include excellent ideas for traffic calming, and I think that this will add to that. So I'm not inclined to put a financial limit on it because I don't have any idea of the cost of any of the other aspects. So I'd prefer to leave it as is. So, Councillor Bulbeck, did you want to speak to that?
Just to support what you've said, but also to, which I presume I'm allowed to say, that the public presentation I thought was useful, and I'm glad to see that we're taking account of it, because
Thank you. Did anyone want to speak against Councillor Wilenko?
First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Hume and his deputation. I'm speaking against it because, as I understand, we have, I'm talking about process, we have a Healthy Streets concept which came out of that consultation process. If we make this amendment, we're now, council, just throwing in to that concept our own ideas of what should happen. And I think that's the point of the next round of consultation. I don't know. There may be other spots on Broome and Marmion that need further traffic calming measures. Presumably, that's what will be thrown up in the next round of consultation. I'm very hesitant in terms of process, not concept-wise. I don't disagree with the concept, but process-wise, should we not accept what we've received from the process and then put it back out to consultation? And if there are other spots, and as I say, I don't know, but there may be 2 or 3 other spots that need to be looked at, then that can come up through that consultation process and then be evaluated, and then a revised concept plan can be brought back to council rather than us just sort of throwing our own ideas in after the, sort of partway through the process. That's all. Thanks.
Councillor Thomas?
I'd like to speak for the amendment. So firstly, I'd just like to address Councillor Wilenko's comments. I think, you made the point that we should follow the process, and if this, the consultation led to this result, we should follow through with that. I guess I'd just like to, observing the process, there was a number of different suggestions on the treatments that would be most appropriate. And my understanding is the town's engineering department has then reviewed those and as well as other engineering considerations such as drainage, put forward the concept. The other thing noted in Mr. Hume's deputation was the recommendation for working groups of the local residents in the local neighbourhood zones to take ownership of the treatments they'd like to see in their areas. And I think, this is a clear example of a group of residents in that local area that have very strongly indicating their preference for certain treatments, so we should certainly take that on board. I think the Mayor's made excellent points about why this treatment should be included. I guess the only other point is just to note the engineering department has put forward some views regarding the challenges of the drainage, and there are some contending views from Mr. Hume, who has expertise in the matter, that there may possibly be other solutions or simpler, lower cost solutions. So I guess just to note that I'm sure they will be considered as part of this process.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Did anyone else want to speak? Councillor Harkins?
Yes, I'm certainly in favour of the amendment. I do want to flesh out a bit more about the cost, though, because all elected members did receive an email identifying that the drainage, according to the Director of Engineering, would be between 40 and 45,000. So I'm not sure how much the drainage is in all the other raised platforms. Have we been given that information? I'm not sure. Am I able, sorry, through the chair, may I ask Mr. Khan?
Through the chair, only this particular intersection was asked. We've not had the opportunity to look at the other intersections at this point in time.
I'm just wondering if when it goes out for consultation that cost should be indicated to the community at some point. I'm not sure. I'm sort of putting
Perhaps
that.
I could
do we-
ask a question of Mr. Khan that might help with you is, are we intending when we consult on the preferred concept to indicate the cost of any particular parts of the project?
Through the chair, ultimately, it's a decision of council whether or not it wishes to provide that information.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So therefore, I would like to propose an amendment that all the costings for the project are included in the consultation, because I think the community need to know how much it's going to cost. Absolutely. Well, you know, what is Main Roads covering and what is the town of Cottesloe covering? So do I need to incorporate that in an amendment?
You would.
This is, we can't amend an amendment.
Yeah, you would have to do your own amendment there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry? You can,
I'll foreshadow an amendment, thank you. I'll foreshadow an amendment that will discuss the costings, but yes, we'll deal with this one first. Thank you. See you.
Councillor Sadler?
Thank you. I'd like to speak in favour of this amendment, but also stating that I think that we're putting out a concept, we're not putting out a design, and I think it would be really important not to preempt the design. So it's possible to have small raised platforms which don't require any drainage, because I see them throughout Perth, and they can be in the centre of an intersection, and they're not impacting things at all. So I think to try and put out a costings when we're actually not actually at a detailed design stage, we're just looking at concepts, that would be a really difficult thing for the administration to do, because depending on what the outcomes of the consultation comes out at, we may have more plateaus or fewer plateaus, etc. So I think that what we need to do is be very careful about keeping it at a conceptual level, but with the aim being to do as much as we possibly can, which fits within the Main Roads remit, to be a project which is fully funded by them. Thank you.
Thank you. So does anyone else want... Oh, Councillor Heath, sorry. Hello, Councillor Heath.
Hello. Yes, I am supportive of the amendment. I just did have a question for Mr. Khan as well. When we say Main Roads are paying for it, I assume that they would be paying to relocate drainage, etc. as well. So is that not the case?
Through the chair, the Main Roads funding is only limited to the actual treatment itself. Items such as drainage does not form part of their grant contribution.
Did anyone else want to speak to the amendment?
I've already spoken. Am I allowed to speak again or not? No, okay.
I'm going to put the amendment to the vote. All in favour? And against, that's Councillor Wilinko. Otherwise, all in favour. So that amendment is passed. I don't know, Councillor Harkins, if you wanted to pursue your
I do indeed.
costings.
Thank you. So I'm not sure what paragraphs we're up to. So is it E, Jacqueline? So something along the lines of point E, that preliminary costings be included in the consultation to the community, unless someone can suggest better wording, but along those lines.
Just interested in preliminary costings for the council rather than...
No, for the community, thank you.
Sorry, yeah, but
Chair.
what we pay, not what the Main Roads Department pays. So it's preliminary costings, to the town.
To the town,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah, thank you. Of suggested treatments.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
Oh, can I talk to it to convince people?
Didn't get a seconder.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll take that as Councillor Irvine seconding.
Okay, thank you.
Very sneaky.
No, he's participating. So I can speak to it. So I just think it's important. I take on board Councillor Sadler's point about this is preliminary high-level proposals, but I think the community need to be aware that we are paying for drainage, and it may not be an issue. And listening to Mr. Hume tonight, perhaps we can come up with solutions that are not $45,000 for the drainage at this particular site, and I don't know what they are at the other ones, but I don't want the community to get all excited about, yes, we'll have this, however many treatments along Broome, along Marmion, and Main Roads are paying for the treatment, but the drainage is going to cost, I don't know, $150,000. Then what do we do? Go back to the community and say, we need to find $150,000 in the budget to do this. Sorry, we can't find it. No, you can't have the treatments. So it's a bit like every other issue. I don't want to hide the costings. I know it's high level. I know it's preliminary. But I think, to be fair to the community, we need to advise them of what these high-level things are, like we do with every project, I think. I think we advise the community of how much things are going to cost. Otherwise, they get all excited and we can't afford it. Thank you.
Councillor Bulbeck, did you want to speak to that? Oh, sorry, Councillor Irvine, sorry. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, I'd just add that, greater transparency. Our role is to drive community benefit for the community, and with that, though, it comes at a cost. So if we can be as transparent as possible about the costs at every start of our development work, then I think that's a very good thing and something that we need to keep front of mind always.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Councillor Sadler?
Thank you. I would speak against this, despite respecting the need for understanding costs. I think when we asked our community to adopt the Foreshore Master Plan, there was no mention of cost. We then had to put it out to detailed design, and we were told back in, several years ago that would be a commitment of $5 million to the community. So you've actually got to ask people at the right stage. So we are not even sure how many plateaus they're going to be for sure at this point in time. We don't even know what the nature of a traffic calming device would be at the proposed location at John Street, and to then ask people to make a decision about uncertain amounts is actually going to muddy the waters, actually lessen transparency. I would also like to really put the onus on the town to develop concepts which don't require that don't require us to actually alter drainage, because what I'd like to see is a template which can be extended throughout the town in areas where there are other needs for traffic slowing. So I think it's really important that we go out with a concept, because it is a concept, rather than to go out with a detailed costings on uncertainties. Thank you.
Councillor Thomas?
I'd also like to speak against this amendment. So firstly, to address Councillor Harkin's point that, you mentioned you want to provide information to the community such that they're not asking for, lots and lots of treatments, which is going to add lots and lots of costs to the overall project. And given, as per Councillor Sadler's point, given it's in the concept phase and there's many factors about each treatment which would influence the cost, such as the height and the drainage and what treatment it is, I think it's not actually going to provide helpful information to support that, what you're trying to achieve there. And I agree, as exactly per Councillor Sadler's point and as per the precedent with the foreshore, it's a concept plan. We need to understand what the treatments are that people want and where they want to see them. And, and I'd also note the engineering department has considered aspects of drainage and minimising costs to the town throughout the design process, hence the exclusion of the treatment at John Street in the first instance.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Anyone else wish to speak? I will just speak very briefly just to identify that the foreshore is by no means the only and isolated example of us consulting at a high level ahead of putting numbers to any particular project. It is not at all uncommon. And my thoughts are, I think, as Councillor Thomas alluded to, that it could actually be counterproductive. It could be less transparent because it might skew the outcome based on fairly uncertain numbers. And I did agree with Councillor Sadler's comments about encouraging, thought to be put into affordable solutions that can be used throughout the district. So on that basis, I don't support trying to tie numbers into it at this stage. Councillor Wilinko?
Thank you. I do support it, and I'd like to speak to that. But the first question I've got is actually, can we clarify exactly what the amendment is? Do we have some words? Do we know exactly what it is yet?
Yes, okay. You don't?
Through the chair.
I think it's important that we get that before we actually...
The intent, we haven't got the actual wording, but the intent of the amendment is to include a point E, that the concept designs to be put out to the community include preliminary costings, to indicative
for
costings.
indicative. Okay.
And there was a sort of added to include to the town.
I had understood that to be exactly, except that I don't think the word indicative was used. I think it was to include costings.
The word indicative wasn't used, it was preliminary. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Indicative is more-
If you're a seconder, we'll accept the word
Is my seconder happy to include the word indicative rather than
preliminary.
preliminary?
Certainly is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilinko, that's the...
Thank you.
yeah.
So from that point of view, I support this because I think it is important to let the community know that these things don't come without some sort of cost. There may be drainage, there may be other issues that the town has to ante up for. I don't know. I think indicative is a pretty good word. It is preliminary. Everybody understands that. It is conceptual. Everybody understands that if we get round numbers, in the thousands or tens of thousands as opposed to precise numbers, I think that's okay. It just helps to give a bit more context to the exercise. Thanks.
Thank you. Did anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? I'll put that to the vote. All in favour? That's Councillor Harkins, Councillor Wilinko, Councillor Heath and Councillor Irvine. And against? That's Mayor Young, Councillor Sadler, Councillor Bullbeck and Councillor Thomas. That is an equal vote. As the presiding member, I will cast my vote against the amendment, so the amendment is lost. And we've returned to the substantive motion, which was moved by... Yes, sorry, I was, Councillor Wilinko. Did you speak? Oh, no, you did speak to it. And you said you thought that it was...
I said I thought it was self-explanatory.
Yeah. And
I would like to say a couple of words, which is that I think... Look,
you'll get to say some words
True.
in summing up. Sorry, just that we'd moved on, yeah. And Councillor Sadler, okay. I thought you just moved your amendment.
No, I second, and I've spoken second.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So,
Okay.
Mayor, point of order, do we no longer get it up on the screen with the incorporating amendments due to live streaming?
That may well be the case.
Okay, that's an interesting change. We don't get to see it before we're voting on it.
Maybe something for future consideration.
Because I think that is important.
So we're back to the substantive motion. Did anyone want to speak against the substantive motion? I will put it to the vote. All in favour? Oh, I do. Yes, I'm so... Oh, Brad. Councillor Wilinko, I'm so sorry.
There was no one speaking against it.
Well, no one spoke against. Yeah, but I'm... Okay, thank you for your understanding. So all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. So now we're going to go back to the order of business. Thank Thank you. Hang on, just bear with me. Item 10.1.3. Some of these items, I might add, have been called up just because of them needing an absolute majority. So I believe that is the case with 10.1.3, delegations register update on page 15, with the officer's recommendation on page 17. Councillor Harkins, you're moving that? Do I have a seconder of the Councillor Bullbeck? Did anyone want to speak against? I'll put that to the vote. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hume. 10.1.4, reconsideration change of John Black Dune Reserve from dog exercise area to dog on leash area. That's on page 18, with the officer's recommendation on page 20. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Can we note that Councillor Harkins is... Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation, Councillor Sadler? And do I have a seconder? Councillor Thomas. Did anyone want to speak against this motion? Oh, okay then. Did you want to speak in favour? Did you circulate?
It's a really tiny amendment, sorry.
Can
Yes.
you? Well, why don't you speak to it and say
Okay.
what it is, because it might be possible to incorporate it.
Yeah, I just was hoping that we might be able to add at point 5, thanks Mr Stephen Mellor for drawing the need for this item to Council's attention.
Is there the mover, who moved the motion? Sorry.
Sorry, yes.
Would I suggest thank a member of the community? I don't know that we normally would refer to individuals because we don't necessarily know that they would like it drawn to their attention as also so.
I'm sure they would, but
Well,
yes, if you
I
want
think
to,
that's,
yes, fair
that's
enough.
making an assumption.
Yes,
Who seconded?
So if you want to say, thank the member from the community for drawing this to the town's attention, drawing the need for the,
this
not
item
this,
to
drawing the
town's
need for the representation of this item to the town's attention. I don't mind if that's in there.
the need for the what? For the
Representation
representation.
of this item to the town's attention. Has
Yep.
that been?
Can I-
I'm happy to.
I would like to point out that there is a requirement that a motion, as moved, it makes sense on the face of it, and there is nothing otherwise in the motion that mentions that it is being represented. So I don't know that that would be an acceptable change. A resolution has to stand on its...
Can we do it as an amendment then? Like, as in, can it be presented as an amendment and then we can vote on the amendment? If that's Councillor Warbeck wants to bring it. Can she
That's
bring it?
probably
well,
easier.
It would need to be clear, to say that the need for whatever would need to be clear. Can I have order, please? I would have concerns about lobbing something in there that doesn't is not self-explanatory on the face of the resolution as a whole.
The agenda, is that sufficient? The agenda says reconsideration, so we could rephrase it as drawing the need for reconsideration of this item.
It's not, if you look at the resolution,
Yes, I understand it's not in the officer's recommendation.
it's
yeah,
pulling
just-
something completely out. I wonder if if it would suffice for me to give an undertaking that I will write to Mr. Mellor personally on the town's letterhead and thank him for drawing that to our attention.
Yeah,
Would that suffice?
I just would appreciate, I know that it's turning the other cheek, but sometimes I think that's useful, so yes.
I don't know if you were at the meeting when this point was raised, and I did thank Councillor Mellor,
I know
Mr.
I know you
Mellor,
did,
for
yes.
drawing it to our attention. And I am certainly very grateful to him for that, and I'm very happy to put a letter in those terms and maybe even get the CEO to countersign it.
Yes, that would
Be
be
happy with
acceptable.
that?
Thank you.
So the officer's recommendation was moved by Councillor Sadler and seconded by Councillor Thomas. Is there anyone to speak against it? I will put it to the vote. All in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. So the next item is 10.1.5, Seaview Golf Course tee box relocation and fairway realignment. That is on page 21. The officer's recommendation is on page 27, but we have had councillor alternate motions from Councillor Bulbeck. So Councillor Bulbeck, can you put your alternative motion, which I think it might be helpful to say it's moved in terms of the officer's recommendation, save for the following changes, and then just highlight the changes.
Okay, yep. So shall I go ahead now and do that?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay, thank you. So it's an alternate motion to the officer's recommendation where the changes are under 1, approves the following golf course modification principles shown in the Richard Chamberlain design, diagram D for a par 3 hole. Then under point 3, install low protection fencing adjacent to the new tee box if considered necessary for the safety of people on Harveyfield. There's a couple of typos, which I won't go into. I don't think it's necessary. And then at point C, monitor the effectiveness of the solution mentioned in points 1A, 1 to 4 and 1B via a monitoring plan prepared by the administration, identifying how the monitoring will be independently undertaken, what it will assess, e.g. the incidence of golf balls landing off the golf course, golf balls striking individuals on and off the golf course, players using a driver instead of an iron on hole 211, and any other relevant safety matters, and how regularly reports will be brought to council. Under 2C, it's a proposed reconstruction that I hope makes it clearer that the arborist report certifies their good health at the end of the maintenance period. And then at point F, implement the course modifications after this design is endorsed by the state government under their statutory requirements and the revised hole 211 design and monitoring plan is approved by council at an ordinary council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Bulbeck. Is there a seconder for Councillor Wilenko? Councillor Bulbeck.
So I'll now read out the rationale. After visiting the course and observing the prevailing winds and the erratic play of some of the golfers, Richard Chamberlain of RCGD revised his initial proposal for a par 4, option 3 in the agenda papers, which had been based on a desktop review. Hence, the attachments to the November OCM identify option 3 as the previous RCGD design, option now superseded. Richard Chamberlain withdrew his support for a par 4 solution and instead recommended a par 3 solution, which is option 4 in our agenda papers. This was noted by council in the November OCM as our preferred solution. Following lengthy consultations with the Seaview Golf Club, the officer's recommendation is now a par 4 solution. It appears that this change of recommendation is based largely on 1, the resistance of the golf club to a par 3 solution, and 2, the insurance and legal advice that the golf club and town have probably met their legal liability subject to point 3 below, although not necessarily their moral obligation to the community. Richard Chamberlain is adamant that the safest option is to shorten the hole, as many clubs around the country have done in recent times. With option 2, he says, the risk to the neighbouring boundary remains significant. Neither option 1 nor option 2 meets the 60-metre distance between the centre line and Harvey Field, recommended by the Society of Australian Golf Course Architects. Additional dangers are option 1 directs balls to the tee towards the Anderson Pavilion, and option 2 destroys the protective trees between fairways 1 and 2, exposing golfers on fairway 1 to balls hit from fairway 2. The local wind blows strong from the west, enhancing the likelihood that balls are blown towards Harvey Field. Par 4 holes involve more risk than par 3 holes because players attempt longer drives by choosing less controllable drivers instead of irons. According to regular witness reports, the club's sign on the second tee asking golfers to use an iron regularly goes unheeded. Because the hole is a short par 4, the temptation to tee straight down the fairway will remain, even with a fairway construction encouraging players to tee off to the left. The proposed eastern boundary buffer of native grasses and when and if they thrive, replacement trees may provide some deterrent. So they're the comments that Richard Chamberlain made supporting or not supporting a par 4. The insurance advice is that the re-engineered hole should reduce the town's and Seaview Golf Course's exposure to an insurance claim. However, a legal defence requires that the town's decision is based upon expert advice and careful consideration. I do not believe that the town has the requisite independent advice, expert advice for a par 4 hole. The designer of option 1, Jeff Lane, was hired by the Seaview Golf Club to redesign the second hole. The designer of option 2, Michael Coate, was engaged by the club for design work on the whole course, and he attended the November OCM, I think after being approached by the golf course, in order to support the golf club's claim that a par 4 design was fair and reasonable. And that's from Tristan McCallum, the secretary. Option 2 requires destruction of an estimated 75 to 100 trees and realignment at greater cost than the other options, estimated $166,000 more than option 4. It is likely that constructing either the option 1 or option 2 par 4 hole will in due course require a 30-metre high fence because, among other things, golfers will still attempt to hit towards the green. RCGD considered a fence to improve the safety of the par 4 option, but noted the cost and aesthetic issues. The insurer reiterates its recommendation to seek expert advice regarding the appropriateness of fencing and netting materials and construction to achieve the required protection from golf balls. The only proposed disadvantage with option 4, RCGD's par 3 proposal, is that the reduced par will lead to a decline in membership and capacity to host competitions. Golf club membership has already declined by 14% from its COVID-related high point in 2020, from 913 to 787 members in 2023. There are world-renowned par 70 courses, including the Royal Birkdale Golf Club, which has hosted the Open Championship 10 times and the Women's British Open a number of times. Richard Chamberlain believes, whatever its par rating, the layout of Seaview Golf Course makes it unlikely to attract significant national tournaments. Council has advised that hole 211 as a par 3 will actually be more difficult to play than the short par 4 proposed. Furthermore, the overall course par can potentially be raised from 69 to 70, i.e. to Birkdale Golf Course's 70, if the ninth hole is changed to par 5. In conclusion, I wish Council had a proposal for a safe par 4 hole, but we do not. I do not believe we should put the safety of the growing number of football players, dog walkers and their dogs at risk and destroy up to 100 trees for an outcome not endorsed by independent experts. Once 75 to 100 mature trees are gone, it will be many years before the proposed replacement plantings make the same contribution to climate modification and amenity for birds and people. Our drying climate makes it increasingly difficult for young trees to thrive, as evidenced by recently planted and now dead Norfolk Island pines along the golf course's Marine Parade boundary. If Council approves the par 4 design in option 2, we are approving any or all of the following: the loss of up to 100 trees, the most expensive option for a re-engineered fairway, serving a declining number of golf players, a young footballer experiencing brain damage, giving rise to a legal claim, and ultimately a 30-metre high fence, all because we were unable to embrace the necessity of reducing the hole from par 4 to par 3.
Thank you, Councillor Bulbeck. Councillor Wilenko, did you want to speak to that?
I
I would like to. Thank you very much. I guess really I'll just summarize because I think there's been quite an extensive rationale provided, but it seems to me that safety has to be paramount in Council's consideration of this issue. Safety both for the people off the course and, of course, for the people on the course. And this current proposed option, it strikes me, by clearing those trees, creates more of a safety hazard on the course. I think that was illustrated by Mr. Richard Chamberlain. The par 3 gets us the 60-meter minimum as recommended by the golf course architects. Otherwise, we only have 40. And if you look at the layout, anybody who's golfed would know that they want to do as direct as possible. So I think it's a bit optimistic to think that, in fact, it'll be 40. It'll probably be closer to the 20. This also helps to eliminate the driver problem, the problem of people using drivers rather than irons. If it's par 3, they will use irons. Otherwise, they will continue to use drivers, and you'll continue to have errant balls even more often than you would with irons. And at the end of the day, not that it's the primary consideration is safety, but it is significantly cheaper to do the par 3. If you look at the table there, significantly cheaper to the club to do the par 3 than a par 4. So for those reasons and the other reasons given by Councillor Bulbeck, I urge you to support this amendment or this alternative motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone want to speak against Councillor Harkins?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak against this motion that Councillor Bulbeck has brought to us because I see that she has a deferral motion lurking. I don't know how that works procedurally, whether she can foreshadow her deferral motion. Is that how that needs to work?
Yep.
Would you like to foreshadow your... So I would like to, I will speak against this motion because I'd prefer a deferral motion because I think there's issues that have been brought up tonight by a member of the golf course. I haven't been privy to the meetings that occurred, so I don't want to say he said, she said, but there seems to be some issues that were brought up tonight that I do feel need to be fleshed out in a workshop scenario for all of us. And I feel comfortable that if it has to wait another month, I feel comfortable with that. We've waited this long. So that's why I'm not going to support this motion. Hopefully we can get to the foreshadowed motion and we can have a deferral to go through all sorts of issues that have been brought up. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak? I will speak against this motion. I think that Councillor Bulbeck has made a number of really important points. I like Councillor Harkins, would prefer to explore those points more fully in a workshop rather than make a decision this evening, not because I want to kick the can down the road, but because I really think it is a very important decision where we have to balance a number of really competing factors, and I feel that we need a bit more information. Councillor Bulbeck's raised some issues that suggest a need for more information. David Rogers from the club raised a number of issues. He mentioned, I believe, unless I misheard him, that 3 insurers. I wasn't aware that there had been 3 insurers. He brought up who pays for what. He said that Lane's design is the preferred design. He wants to leave the third tee box alone, and he suggested the need for further consultation. I have myself raised some issues, in particular whether it is, from a practical point of view, possible to do a par 3 solution as a first step, and then if that doesn't adequately address safety, move to a par 3 option. I'd like to better understand that. I think also the officer's report probably does, before we were to opt to Chamberlain's solution, I think the officer's report might require some clarification on the background. Councillor Bulbeck's mentioned the background to that, but it's not fully brought out in the officer's recommendation. So on that basis, I think a deferral motion will be the advisable course to make sure that we get the right outcome. And it is a really important decision for the community. And there are, as I've said, a lot of competing and compelling factors to be taken into account. So I'll speak against this on the basis that I'm anticipating a deferral motion. Did anyone else want to speak to the substantive motion? Councillor Bulbeck, do you want to sum up?
I guess just to say that I think virtually all the points are covered, and then the other, well, am I responding to things that have already been said? The issue is also ideally to achieve the planting season, which I think is by September. But if we're only able to, anyway, that's all right. Yes. So yeah, I think we spent a long time discussing this, and the November OCM supported the Path 3 as the council's preferred option at that time.
Thank you. I'm going to put this substantive motion to the vote. All in favour? That's Councillor Bulbeck and Wilinko, and against? That's all other councillors attending, so that motion fails. And Councillor Bulbeck, you have your alternative motion.
Mm-hmm. So again, do I read out the first bit and then wait for a seconder?
Read the motion, yeah.
Yes, sorry, the motion,
please.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, that council defer consideration of the Seaview Golf Course tee box relocation and fairway realignment, fairway to an 11, to the September 2024 OCM and bring the matter to a briefing forum in the meantime. Request the administration provide responses to the questions and concerns outlined in the rationale. In particular, if the town has independent expert advice that a safe Par 4 option has been or can be designed for this hole. If council does not have such advice, should the town be provided with legal advice on the town's position? Can the town require the work to be done for a Par 3 hole against the wishes of Seaview Golf Club? And if not, and the town and Seaview Golf Club remain at an impasse, the legal liability of the town and the golf club in respect of injury caused by errant golf balls.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for Councillor Thomas? Councillor Bulbeck?
So the rationale, it's similar to before, but I will go through it again. After visiting the course and observing the prevailing winds and the erratic play of some of the golfers, Richard Chamberlain of RCGD revised his initial proposal for a Par 4, which had been based on a desktop review. Hence, the attachments to the November OCM identify option 3 as the previous RCG design option now superseded. Richard Chamberlain withdrew his support for a Par 4 solution and instead recommended a Par 3 solution. This was noted by Council in the November OCM as our preferred solution. Following lengthy consultations with the Seaview Golf Club, the officer's recommendation is now a Par 4 solution. Is it correct that this change recommendation is based on, one, the resistance of the golf club to a Par 3 solution?
Sorry, do we need to, we've already...
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yes, sorry. I was enjoying...
we've already covered it. Maybe
Good.
Oh, actually,
There a bit,
substantive,
look, I think
Different, I think.
Councillor Bulbeck is entitled to speak to the motion, but perhaps we keep it to the 3 minutes and pull out the... Thank you.
I'll try and, okay, so anyway, you've kind of, I've phrased that last bit as a question. So the insurance and legal advice has met their legal liability subject to point 3 below, but not necessarily their moral obligation to the community. Then point 2 reiterates that Richard Chamberlain believes that with option 2 there's a risk to the neighbouring boundary remains significant, and he's adamant that the safest option is to shorten the hole. he claims neither option 1 nor option 2 meet the 60-metre distance as recommended by the Society of Australian Golf Course Architects, and identifies those additional problems that we've discussed before. Then item 3, or point 3, is as per previously, asking the question, does the town actually have the requisite independent expert advice supporting a par 4 hole? And then reiterating the relationship of Jeff Lane and Michael Coate to the club, rather than being an independent designers. Is it likely that constructing either the option 1 or option 2 par 4 hole will in due course require a 30-metre high fence because, and then the points I made before, golfers will still attempt to hit towards the green. My point that both Richard Chamberlain and the insurer suggest that there could still be a need for a fence if we stay with the par 4, go with the par 4. What can the town or the club do effectively to monitor the recommended use of irons at the second tee? Does it require a permanently stationed independent observer to stop golfers from using a driver, count the number of balls hit onto Harvey Field and record accidents? What penalties should be imposed on golfers for using a driver instead of an iron? Then I reiterate the golf club opposes a par 3 solution, claiming a loss of membership and having competitions, but then pointing out that the Royal Birkdale Golf Club can do open championships and the Women's British Open at par 70, and that the par 70 option seems to be possible for re-engineering this 9th hole to a par 5. Then option 2 is not without cost to the town and the community, the destruction of 75 to 100 trees, including a beautiful dense stand of mature windswept trees just south of the tee to the 3rd hole. It would be devastating if this destruction were carried out only to find that a young footballer experienced brain damage as a result of an errant golf ball, even if the town and club had acquitted our legal liability. Any accident or golf balls continuing to land on Harvey Field would probably require a 30-metre high fence after all, to the dismay of many Cottesloe residents. In making this decision tonight, Council might ultimately be choosing between the loss of 100 trees and the construction of a $500,000 unsightly fence, or imposing on the golf club a fiercely resisted but necessary par 3 hole. I can stop there.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas, did you want to speak to that?
No, nothing further to add.
Thank you. Did anyone want to speak against the deferral motion? Councillor Bolinko?
I don't want to speak against it so much as propose an amendment to it.
Yeah, you can move an amendment now.
I'd like to move an amendment to delete point 2, to keep point 1, but delete point 2 on the basis that I'm not clear what the questions are, to be honest. And secondly, there may be a number of other questions that need to be addressed, and I don't want to get into a debate about which questions we should be having the admin take a look at or not. I think point 1 is sufficient, but I don't have a seconder yet. Okay. So if I might just say, I really don't understand what 2D, what the question actually is, but I'm not even clear that I know what any of the questions are. So I get what you're trying to get at here. It's, obviously we need to get a variety of issues resolved, and I think that's why this motion's gone up. But I would propose leaving it to the admin, having read your rationale, to come back with a briefing on the variety of questions. And if there are other questions that I suppose councillors have, perhaps we could put that to admin independently of the meeting. I'm just hesitant to try to list them out in this way.
No, I'm
are you
happy for that to be removed.
and is your seconder happy
Yes,
with
are
that
you
change to
accepting
the
of that?
substantive motion? No? Okay then. We've got,
I made my point.
yeah, Councillor Harkins.
I'd like to speak in favour of the amendment because I completely agree. I think these are really good points in point 2, but there are others. For example, the parking issue that was addressed tonight. That's not on there. That seems to be quite important. So I think there's a lot of paperwork here with many, many issues that I would trust our administration to flesh out all the issues in a briefing workshop. So I completely agree that we shouldn't be picking some that seem important and some don't. I think the list could be expanded. So that's why I feel more comfortable just having, let's have a deferral, bring it to a briefing forum and trust the administration. Thank you.
Councillor Heath? You're on mute, I think, Councillor Heath. Start again, yeah.
Sorry. I just wanted to speak for the motion for a deferral and to remove number 2. I also wondered if, I'm not sure if it's necessary to put it in the number 1 there about the briefing forum, but I have visited the site a couple of times myself, and I think a site visit, perhaps with the administration, would be really beneficial to go over these things. So I wondered if it's worth, I would be supportive of it saying a briefing forum and site visit, but I'm not sure if I need to.
You would have to.
Get other people. So could I move that addition?
Well, I'm happy to accept that to the amendment, if that's part of the exercise here.
Okay. So, Councillor Heath, did you? So that's been adopted into the amendment. I'm going to speak against that adoption because I think sorry? I would prefer it to be as an amendment. Councillor Heath, you can move that as an amendment to the amendment once we've dealt with this. You can move an amendment that the briefing forum be extended to include a site visit. Where were we? We've got the amendment. We've had speakers. I just want to explain why I'm concerned about including specifically a site visit, because I think the briefing forum might throw up issues that are technical in nature and which a site visit might end up with us effectively in a meeting with the golf club, which might not be the most effective and appropriate way to deal with these issues. So for that reason, I'm concerned. I think the briefing forum will bring out what we need, and if there is a need for a site visit, that can come out at the briefing forum itself. The administration would be able to take feedback from councillors at the briefing forum to determine whether that was an appropriate administrative step to take. So for that reason, I fully support the amendment, but I'm concerned about including a site visit. So we've got the amendment, which is the removal of the second paragraph. Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, I'd like to speak against that, just because I feel that Councillor Bulbeck has done a great job of summarising these issues and set forward a clear path. I'm not expecting that only these questions will be answered, but I feel like there is value in keeping them in.
Anyone else want to speak to the amendment? The amendment being the removal of paragraph 2. I'll put that to the vote.
Sorry, I can speak against that, can't I? Is that right or not?
Have you spoken already?
Not against the amendment tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out that I think it actually does cover that we're not just asking these issues to be brought to us, because I say the questions and concerns outlined in the rationale, and then in particular, so it's open up to, and I'm also very happy to add an E, and other relevant matters, if that, but that's probably a bit late for that, so.
Well, who was your seconder, councillor Thomas?
Yes.
Well, what's the change that you're proposing?
That, at the bottom of 2D.
Sorry?
I can't propose that at the moment because that's coming out, isn't it? The proposal at the moment is that section 2 comes out. Yep.
Okay, yeah, quite right. So I'm going to put to the vote that paragraph 2 be removed. All in favour? That is Councillor Harkins, Willinco and Mayor Young against. Councillor Heath, Irvine, Bullbeck, Thomas and Sadler. So that motion is lost. So we're back to the substantive motion. Councillor Harkins.
Can I add an amendment, please?
Yeah.
And Councillor Bulwick may incorporate it into her by adding a point E and other relevant matters.
I'm very happy to accept that proposal. Thank you.
Actually, sorry, the CEO has just pointed out that Councillor Heath had foreshadowed an amendment.
Oh,
Sorry,
yes,
Councillor
that's
Heath.
right, yes.
You wanted to amend it to include a site visit. Did you want to move that as an amendment?
Yes, please, and perhaps I was misunderstood. I didn't mean a site visit with the golf club. I meant a site visit with councillors and administration. But I'm happy if, as you mentioned, that might come out of the agenda forum, just to leave it as is, and I'll bring it up at the workshop. Sorry, I'll bring up the need for a site visit with administration to the golf course at the workshop.
Okay, so you're not going to move that as an amendment at this stage? Okay, thanks, Councillor Heath. So, Councillor Harkins.
So, but I'm just wondering if Councillor Bulbeck would include in her substantive motion, the deferral motion, a point E and other relevant issues or something along those lines.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
So the substantive motion now includes new paragraph E, 2E and other relevant issues. Did anyone else want to speak to the motion?
I just had a very brief question with regard to the timing. If I may ask the administration about the September OCM, if that was enough time to bring that back, if that had been clarified, or whether it can be brought back earlier to the August OCM, noting that we have, say, it has been running for a long time. I just want to do it in as timely a manner as fashion as possible.
Through the chair, with the inclusion of point E, we're probably going to have 2 workshops on this. One, to find out what questions need to be answered, and then a following workshop to try and provide those answers. So at the moment, I'm probably thinking an August briefing session to collate what questions council would like us to investigate, and then possibly the September briefing to workshop the responses to those questions, with the possibility of it going to the September OCM. It would seem that there's a number of questions around the table, and I don't want to limit the time available to try and find those answers.
And September is an adequate time frame for you rather than October. Just want to clarify that we are putting it, the resolution's reasonable from an administration point of view. That's what I just want to clarify.
At the moment, it sounds reasonable, but I am looking at my Director of Engineering, who will probably be doing a fair bit of this work.
Through the chair, perhaps if I could suggest to council to say no later than October, but I'll try and make it September.
Councillor Bulbeck and Councillor Thomas, are you happy to add in, rather than September, by no later than the October OCM? Councillor Bulbeck and Councillor Thomas, are you happy to incorporate that? Councillor Bulbeck?
Yeah.
So the substantive motion is changed in that respect. So does anyone else want to speak to the motion before I give Councillor Bulbeck a right to reply? Councillor Bulbeck, did you want to?
Sorry.
Well, actually, I don't think anyone has spoken against the substantive motion, so there isn't anything to reply to.
Just a point of my last sentence, which I didn't read out, says 2 months deferral should provide the town, but that's okay because we're saying no later than, so it still fits with the, yep, okay.
So I'll put that to the vote. All in favour? That is a unanimous vote. Thank you. Moving on. Just let me regather my thoughts. Yep, hang on, I'm covered. 10.1.8, Seaview Golf Club Redevelopment Advisory Committee terms of reference. That is called up because it needs out of an abundance of caution, the view is that it needs an absolute majority. Yes, thank you, Councillor.
Through the chair, Madam Mayor, just before we move, there is a slight spelling correction in regards to the item 6 membership. It should read ex officio, not ex officio. On item 6 on page 424 of the attachments.
Oh, ex officio.
Yeah, ex officio rather than ex officio. Oh.
Yeah. Thanks. I think that can be dealt with administratively. Yeah, thank you. So, Councillor Sadler, the officer's recommendation is on page 45. Move Councillor Sadler. Do I have a seconder for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Thomas. Does anyone want to speak against this motion? I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? That's unanimously passed. Thank you. Then the next item is we're moving on to matters which may be considered behind closed doors. In item 13, I move that the meeting be closed to consider item 13.1.1 and 13.1.2. Was that your hand up there, Councillor Thomas? Yeah. I'm going to put that to the vote. All in favour? Can I have hands in the air, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. So, thank you very much, Mr. Christian. closed at, oh, what time is it? 7:54. Why is it? Yep, 7:54. And can I please thank Councillor Irvine for attending from Melbourne, I guess?